Hey guys, I'm Kate the Simple Biologist, and today we're going to be talking about a paper from researchers at Duke University. And what they did was test already FDA-approved drugs for effects against Zika. Let's say that today in the lab we found a drug that worked really well against Zika. Even with these really positive results, it would still take around 8 to 20 years before this drug could get FDA approval. And it would cost around $125 million to get it to the point of approval. And while the FDA regulations are really important to make sure that the drugs that we take are safe, FDA approval is not a cheap or fast process. As of 2013, there have been over 1,000 FDA-approved drugs that treat everything from HIV to heart disease. The paper we're going to talk about today took 774 of these FDA-approved drugs and tested them for any activity against Zika. Of those 774, they found over 20 that had some kind of effect. And of those 20, about 4 showed that effect in multiple different kinds of cells. At best, these about 4 drugs that they found could be a possible treatment option for those people that already have Zika. At the very least, the 4 drugs can help other researchers studying Zika. That way they can find a treatment for Zika faster. So let's learn a little more about Zika. There are a few ways that people get Zika. The most common one is through mosquito. But you can also get Zika through sexual contact with someone that's already been infected, and vertically, from mother to the fetus that she's carrying. Generally, the symptoms of Zika kind of mimic dengue fever, except a little less severe. And most people are honestly pretty okay. One of the biggest and worst side effects of Zika happens to pregnant women. And that's because Zika can have an effect on the fetus. There's an increased risk of something called microencephaly. Microencephaly is when the child is born with a smaller head than normal, which can lead to very severe brain defects. Currently, there's nothing doctors can do for pregnant women with Zika. These researchers set up a system so they can test a lot of FDA-approved drugs to hopefully find one that has an effect against Zika. The researchers initially tested all of their drugs on a cell that's really easy to grow, liver cells. They used a different group of liver cells for each of the drugs that they were testing, from 1 to 774. After each of the cells were treated with their respective drug, they then tried to infect these cells with Zika and saw which drugs offered a protective effect for their cells. The drugs that did the best were then taken to the next stage of the testing. The next step of testing was to use different kinds of cells and see if the drug still worked on those. These researchers focused on cells that were part of the female reproductive tract, since pregnant women see the worst side effects of Zika. They tested cells from the cervix, placenta, and amniotic sac. They treated each of these different kinds of cells with the drug that did well in the liver cells, and then tried to infect these cells with Zika to see which drugs still offered their protective effect even on these different types of cells. So how can you tell if your drug is working against Zika? These researchers were able to monitor the effectiveness of their drugs by making a protein in Zika fluorescent. So when Zika infects a new cell, that cell glows. And if Zika can't infect a cell, that cell doesn't glow at all. And so if your drug is doing a really good job, you'll have a lot of cells that aren't glowing, and only very few that are. Of the 24 drugs that worked well in liver cells, only about 4 worked well in more than 3 different kinds of cells. Although we now have these 4 drugs pinpointed, there's still a lot more work that needs to be done. This paper only told us that these drugs work against Zika, but it doesn't say anything about how they function. It also doesn't give us any indication if these drugs will actually work in a human setting. And although these drugs may be an effective treatment in the future for women pregnant with Zika, the most likely effect of these drugs will be to help further research on Zika so we can find a more specific and permanent drug for Zika moving forward. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to subscribe to my channel for more videos or follow me on Twitter or Instagram for science updates. You can also check me out on my website, SimpleBiologist.com, for articles that go with my videos. See you next time.